So hello everyone, I am back and in today's video we are going to be implementing a simple parser of a CSV file in Zig programming language. So let's get started. Here, if I will cd into CSV parser, you can see I have a weather.csv file. If I will just print the contents of this file, you can see there are a lot of parameters. Let's just zoom out a bit and see what those parameters are. So like minimum temperature, maximum temperature, I just took this from Kaggle. So if you want the CSV file, I would be linking this down in the description. So let's just quick out of it. And I would be first running the zig init command to create all the important files and directories that we need. Also, just for our testing purposes, I would be moving the weather.csv file that is currently in the main folder inside the source folder. So let's just move the weather.csv inside the source folder. And yes, I think so it has been moved. Perfect. So let's just start coding. I would be using the Helix editor, which I really liked it, and I would be using it right now. So let's just do dot and open the main file. Let's just select all of this and delete this. In fact, yes, I'm new to this editor, so obviously the speed of how I do things would be pretty slow. I just, like this day itself, I asked somebody how to configure Zig onto the Helix editor. So yes, I might be a bit slow at this. Now, let's just start coding. So const std will be equal to at the rate import std. Initially, the plan is to implement functions inside of the main file for parsing purposes, and then we would be moving all of these components or all of these functions which we have built into different separate zig files for our library. So this is the very first line. Let's create a public function main, and the return type is void. Initially, what we want is the structure of the CSV file itself. How does a CSV file look like? As I showed you, I think so Command D program, Command D shortcut pops up a terminal window towards the right. And also I'm using the Ghosty terminal, which has been made in Zig programming language, and I really liked it. Now print like using the bat command, I would be printing the contents of the CSV file again. Weather.csv. You can see that we have these, the column, the header of the columns, and then a lot of rows. Obviously, like it's just how we see a table. A table has has multiple rows, multiple columns, and every column has its own name. So these are the names which is inside the first line itself. You can see the number one, and here are all of these column names. Here we have all of these values, whatever are present inside the CSV file. Let's just quit out of this and create a new struct for this. The structure that I think we need to do is we first need a header, a list, like whose type will be a list of strings, because the column names on the header is basically a list of string, right? If I have a column with roll number, name, age, so the roll number, name, and age itself would form a list, right? So I would have the header, the single row of header as a list of string, and all the other rows as a list of strings. So a single row is a list of string, and a list of all of those strings is basically the entire data of the CSV file. CSV is, I really like the idea of CSV and TSV, that is tab separated values. You can have different kinds of delimiters inside of it, and you can basically store a lot of data in them in very simple text format. Now I have the header, I have the rows. I now need to create a struct. So let's just create a struct which is const CSV is equal to a struct, and inside of this I need to add some parameters, that is the header. Obviously for string we need a const UA type, and for rows it will be a list of U8. I think so the const will be placed here. Yeah, I think so that. And let's just continue with this. So like this is the very basic representation of how a CSV file looks like. The column names and the rows. That's it. Great. Now we are going to be implementing the parsing function of the CSV file, right? Let's just create that. So public, instead, no, I don't need public right now because we are in the same file. Let's just create a function parsed or parse CSV, and the raw data would be in the form of a string itself, which is const u8. 1 minute, I think so. I made a mistake. See, the header is not a string, right? It's a list of strings, and the rows would be a list of strings. Yes. So that's the thing, because like sometimes you think this is a string. No, that's not a string. This entire entity is a string. Like this entire thing is a string. List of constant unsigned 8-bit integers is a string. And its list will be a list of strings. So that is something a bit confusing part that we need to look at. Now we will have a parse CSV function, right? And it would return this CSV struct. Great. Now to parse this thing, what will be the very first step? The very first step is to read the first line, that is the header line, split that line into commas, and then we will get the name of column, right? We will get each column name. So to do that, for example, the first line of CSV, the first F FIRST, the first line of CSV is this, uh, column name 1, column name 2, and so on. And that's the very first line. Now from the next line, we have the data 1, data 2, and so on. So this is the very basic representation of how a CSV file looks like, right? So let's just implement the parse CSV function. Now for this, we will have this this content, that is the raw data of the CSV file. We first need to split the lines, the individual lines themselves. So to do that, I will be creating a split scalar thing, like that is the std.mem.split scalar, that we can use to split all the content into lines. So for that, split iter for lines is equal to std.mem.split scalar, and like these are the different arguments this function takes. So let's just pass the comtime t type, that is the u8, then the buffer const t. This will be the buffer that we have taken as input, that is the raw data itself, and the delimiter, that is going to be the new line character /n. Now we have an iterator for lines. Why I have not used const? Because when we are using an iterator, if that is const, we would not be able to use the dot next function that we will see in a bit. Okay. Now, because we can directly enter a while loop, I'm not going to be doing that. What we are going to do is the very first line is the header and rest is all the data. So why not just implement the parsing of the very first line using a normal if statement, and then for the entire data we would be doing a while loop. Okay, let's implement that. We have uh okay, so let's just do that. If we have if iter for lines dot next, so it will check if we have the header or not. Now if we don't have an header, we are going to be returning an error because it's basically an empty CSV file. For that we need a declaration of errors. Now declaration of errors can be done using const errors, or I think so what could be a better way, const maybe CSV parsing errors will be equal to error. Yeah, this is yeah, I think so we can do this, and inside of this I need to implement all these parameters. So the first error which we are encountering right now is empty CSV file error. So empty or header not found, header not found, empty CSV error. I don't think so we should have such long identifier names, but it's fine. Header not found, empty CSV error. Okay, that's fine. uh let's just write all of this. Like you should also have a habit of saving whatever you are doing. uh for this, let's just insert the value of mm, okay, we would be getting a single line, right? Header line. Now like if the header line exists, we are going to then be splitting the header line into individual tokens. For that, where iter for header will be equal to std.mem.split scalar, the very same thing that we had implemented. U8 buffer this time will be header line, and the delimiter will be the comma sign itself. Why we are doing this? Because we have first split the entire raw data into individual lines. Now individual line would be splitted by the comma and we would be getting individual tokens. Now I have, let me just check if recording is going on, right? Yeah, the recording is going on. Fine. Now we have the iter for header. Okay, nice. For this, we would be doing a while loop and iter for header dot next. Now we would be getting individual token of the header itself. For implementing this, we would be getting the column name, and we would be taking that individual column name and we would be storing that into a list, that is this list, the header list. Obviously, Zig programming language is not a garbage collected programming language, so we need to implement our own allocators, our own stuff. Now, the parse CSV function for implementing the allocator will take an allocator attribute, allocator. Now, every allocator is basically a subset of std.mem.allocator. Yes. So we can use the std.mem.allocator to get any kind of allocator that the user wants. Uh, yes. I also want to place that into like this function can return an error, so why not place an exclamation mark in front of it? Now the allocator, what's the error? Okay, we haven't used the function parameter. Allocator We would be using this allocator to create a list. So the list var header list is going to be the header list is going to be std dot array list. Yes, and this takes const because like an a list of string will be an array list of const right? Like list of const uh yes, now I would be doing an initialization function, I would be calling it, and allocator I would be passing to this because this needs an allocator. Now the header list is going to be we would be getting individual column names, so I would be appending those column names to the header list. So header list dot append, and what item I would be appending, that's the column name. Yes, and I would be doing a try because whatever error this append function throws, that would be catched by this exclamation mark. And if the user wants to handle that kind of an exception, yes, they can. Memory not available. That's such a, I like, throughout, like since I've started coding, I've never seen an error of uh like memory is full or something like that, because nowadays we have uh gigabytes and gigabytes of RAM in our computers. Any like out of memory errors, I remember it used to be when the memory used to be of a very few megabytes, 256 megabytes, or I think so even less, 128 megabytes. So during that time, this out of memory errors used to be there. Obviously, bringing that convention till today, we still have the out of memory error, because if we somehow manage to fill every single bit present inside the RAM, we can easily reach that point of out of memory error. But I have never encountered such a thing. Uh, Now we have the try header list dot append column name. Now because I'm appending the column name, and after this point, I need to implement an else statement where I would be returning an error. Return error. Actually, I think so. We have the CSV parsing errors. CSV parsing errors dot header not found empty CSV. Okay, so this will be the error if there are no headers present inside of the CSV file, or the CSV file is empty. Fine. Now we have implemented parsing of headers correctly. What if, let's just imagine a scenario where we have column name 1, column name 2, and due to some issue or whatever issue that might be, the error which we can face is that the CSV file contains a data 3 column. Like throughout the rows, there is an extra column because the CSV file is corrupted. Hence, we can also show an error regarding CSV file corrupted. How we would do that? For that, we would first count the number of headers. If we would first count the number of headers, so the number of column names. So number of columns will be, for example, 10. Now, while looping through all the data, if we encounter a row that has 11 columns, that's a concern, because that's something which is not that's not something that should happen. Hence, we will show an error. In that case, why not create a invalid CSV error? Yes, we can create this, and we can also give small descriptions to this. So, like in doc comments, invalid CSV error. This will happen when error happens when the, okay, column name, if, okay, if column if column if number of columns don't match the number of columns in the header. Yes, I think so. This makes sense. Header not found empty CSV occurs when header is not implemented in a CSV, or if or which implies that the CSV file is empty, right? I mean, if we are not implementing the header, so the CSV file is empty. And if the CSV file is not empty, then we have implemented the header. That's the concept. Okay. Let's just continue from here. We have while iter for header dot next column name, try header list dot append column name. Now the scenario which I was talking about, like we have more number of columns. How we would check that? We first need to know how many columns are there inside the header. For that, check. Okay. Uh, so for that we need to implement some kind of logic, right? Why not declare a variable of something like count or header? Okay. Number of columns will be equal to 0. Uh, Actually, it should be 1 because the header itself is one column and all the other will be no. That does not make sense. Number of columns. Okay, now I column. So okay, so the number of columns is 0, and once we are going through all the tokens in the header, we would be counting each token and we would be appending that to like we would be adding 1 to number of columns. Let me show you what I mean. In Zig we have this colon and this round bracket. We can implement this for like plus is equal to operations. Number of columns plus is equal to 1. Now once we exit out of this loop, we will know how many columns are there in the entire CSV file. And once this has been done, we can also add this as a parameter inside the struct. Number of columns, which is going to be a U16, or let's just give it U32. That mean, who has a U32 number of columns? I think so U16 is enough for number of columns. So U16 provides enough like length to so that we can store the number of columns that a user might have. Okay, so for now, I think so we are good. We have implemented the counting of the number of columns. We have also implemented the like header list, like parsing the CSV file and getting the columns. Now in the next video I would be showing you how we will implement the getting the number of getting the number of rows, because like getting the number of columns, then we need a number of rows that I would be adding here. We would also be implementing how we can like split the data, store them inside this rows. And also what we can do, I just thought about this, instead of using this number of columns, we can just do header list dot length or dot size or whatever function is available, or dot capacity. Like we can like once we have appended all the column names, we can just do a dot length operation on the header list, and then we can get the amount of column present inside. So thank you for watching. Be sure to smash that thumbs up button. Also subscribe to the channel. It helps me a lot. So thank you and bye bye.